Reporting live from the Supreme Court. But as we speak, the court is currently on recess. Cross-examination is what transpired today, and Johnson Asiedu Nketia is still in that witness box. We'll get onto some other stories here on the Midday News, and the Food and Drugs Authority says it has approved the first herbal medicine for clinical trial for COVID-19 treatment. The medicine, known locally as Nebima, was submitted by researchers from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology School of Public Health in September last year. In a statement, Chief Executive Officer of the FDA, Delisi Mimi Dako, said the authority gave the go-ahead for the clinical trial last month. There's more in this News Desk report.
In search for a treatment for the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, researchers from the School of Public Health at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology submitted a clinical trial application in September 2020 to assess the safety and efficacy of Cryptolysis sanguinolenta as a potential treatment for COVID-19. This follows results from laboratory studies conducted by the KNUST research team, which points in the direction of possible clinical benefits. The FDA, after detailed assessment of the application, gave the requisite regulatory authorization for the conduct of the trial as per the mandate outlined by Part 8, Sections 150 to 166 of the Public Health Act 2012, Act 851, which gives the authority the legal mandate to regulate clinical trials of drugs, herbal medical products, cosmetics, and medical devices. The trial will be conducted at 2 sites. To this end, the public is admonished to report any suspicious activity on FDA-regulated products to the authority via any of our platforms.
That was a News Desk report. Meanwhile, President Akufo-Addo has revealed the first batch of vaccines targeted at 20 million Ghanaians will arrive in the country in March this year. In his 23rd address to the nation last night, the president assured the vaccines will go through a process of certification by the FDA before it is dispensed.
Our aim is to vaccinate the entire population with an initial target of 20 million people. Through bilateral and multilateral means, we're hopeful that by the end of June, a total of 17,600,000 vaccine doses would have been procured for the Ghanaian people. The earliest vaccine will be in the country by March. The Food and Drugs Authority, FDA, will use its established processes for granting emergency use authorization for each vaccine in Ghana. I assure you that only vaccines that have been evaluated and declared as safe for use in Ghana will be administered.
Now, some scientists have, however, discounted the possibility of the vaccines reaching the country shores before June. But health authorities say efforts to procure them began as far back as last year. Listen to Director of the West African Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens, Professor Gordon Awanderi, and Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abuaje, when they spoke on the probe on the Joy News channel last night.
I heard that the president has now said that we should think about June, which is more realistic.
But March, the first batch he says in March.
I would discount that. That would just be maybe a few trickles for just a small number of people. For us to get vaccines in substantial quantities, that will make a difference to the people. I think it will be the second half of the year, just based on the fact that there's a queue for these vaccines. People have pre-ordered vaccines. We are now trying to make an order. So, it's not realistic that we're going to be getting millions of doses of vaccines anytime soon.
There are orders already that have been placed long ago, and that's why we can say that March.
Placed from where? At least if we are announcing that by March, we have just a month to go. Ghana Health Service will know. We need to know which companies we're buying from.
There are so many vaccines that we are looking at. Okay? And so as they come in, we know the numbers that are likely to come in, probably in February and in early March, so that we can start. They will come in batches. So there's a lot of work that has gone on to look at that. The FDA is looking at dossiers to register vaccines companies that have brought in them, and that will determine what you got. But in the meantime, as people are pre-ordered, so have we also done our own pre-order, either through the COVAX platform, another bilateral that is going.
But the scientists are discounting that we could get it in March.
No, they don't know.
Okay.
They don't know what we do. We didn't just start last week. So that's why the president can tell you that this is when I expect vaccine.
That's the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abuaji. Earlier, also you heard Director of the West African Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens, Professor Godwin Awenderi. Well, later today, the President is expected to have a meeting on the procurement of the vaccines at the Jubilee House. We'll bring you more on that. And today, as Ghana enters a new phase in the COVID-19 response program with the reintroduction of tighter restrictions, experts are charging government to consider extending control measures to the transport sector. In his update number 23, Sunday night, President Akufo-Addo said the country's situation is dire as hospitals are now full with many severe and critical cases of the infection. Among other things, the president announced a ban on all funerals, weddings, parties and other mass gatherings.
Until further notice, funerals, weddings, concerts, theatrical performance and parties are banned. Private burial with no more than 25 people can take place with the enforcement of the social distancing, hygiene, and mask-wearing protocols. Beaches, nightclubs, cinemas, and pubs continue to be shut. Our borders by land and sea remain closed. All workplaces, public and private, must employ a shift system for workers. Conferences and workshops can take place with all the appropriate protocols. However, I encourage the use of virtual platforms for such engagements.
Now, here's the national chairperson of the CPP, Nana Akosua-Frimpong, who says the ban, though welcoming, should have included a cap on seating in public transport vehicles.
The ban on public gathering is even, for me, is not as serious as the ban on as the spacing in the vehicle. Because the vehicle is in an enclosed atmosphere. Some of these vehicles that travel probably is air conditioned, okay? And it's an enclosed, in an enclosed space. You are forced to sit. You can't just get up and walk around. When I go to a funeral, I can either get up and walk around if I think somebody is too close to me. But this one, you are forced to sit with someone for 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. That is too much. So I think that that's the point we are making. We like the proactivity, being able to ban public gathering. But what about the person that is forced to sit by you in a vehicle? Why did we do it in the first place if it wasn't necessary?
Okay. Clearly,
we can't do it now because of the economic impact. And I think that government should do it. Not only should they do it for the people, for the average Ghanaian, the majority of the Ghanaian that we CDP represent. Right. We are saying that those people, they must immediately. This is not something which we even debate. For me, I want to see it as an oversight on government.
And that's the national chairperson of the CPP, Nana Akosua-Frimpong. Well, lead virologist at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, Dr. Kofi Boni, agrees. But how are people receiving this new arrangement? We've been speaking to some Ghanaians on the streets of Accra. Listen.
What I'm thinking is that the government is not trying to tell us the truth. They are trying to hide some of the cases from us. So that's what I'm thinking of.
Do you feel safe? But you're still going to school. Do you feel safe going to school?
No. Because actually my class, like, we have over 80 students. Like, you can see 3 students sitting on one deck. So that's what I want them to do.
This is a close answer. But I'm going to say, and I driver for them, competitive passengers. But I this what can be bizarre. Because I am saying, me was not from the 444. The name is lockdown, they be lockdown, factory, the commerce of factory in our manisa. The area with this year, over 4 canals, the amount for one account, you sanitize the woman over a more behind
the cases are rising and there are more deaths. So I think it was a prudent decision taken by the president. As of now, it doesn't look as if the sickness is coming from any particular place. You don't even know where it is coming from. You just know that it is in town and a lot of people are dying. So if there is a lockdown, you don't know. Maybe the kids that are home, if they are at school, there are teachers over there to check their temperatures, to do everything. But if they are home, they go out and go in room, and you never know. They even bring the sickness from their friends or from wherever they play. But when they are in school, their teachers are making sure that they adhere to strict protocols. And even if you are at work, your bosses and your superiors make sure that everything that you are supposed to do to make sure that you are doing things.
Some of your views there on the new arrangements. We'll stay a while longer on the new restrictions because there have been mixed reactions to the ban placed by the president on weddings and funerals due to the rise in COVID-19 cases. While some say it is a good initiative as the ban will save lives and curb the spread, others, however, express worry over the debt they are incurring due to plans they've already made.
Funerals and other occasions is something that is designed in such a way that people will come together. You get it? So definitely there will be contact. So there's no other way.
I think what the government, the president
of this nation has done, I think is the best thing for us. And I believe that each and everyone should comply to the directive that he has put into places.
So long as it is in our own interest, I don't have anything about it. So it is okay. We have to wait and see what will happen in the future.
It has affected me. I don't know if it is positive or negative because as I speak, the remains of my dad is in the morgue, and then we're planning his funeral actually for this month. So with the president placing this restriction of about 25 people for funerals, I think it's a blow, but I don't know if it's positive or negative because it also means I'll cut down costs in terms of people, feeding, refreshment and stuff.
Honestly, I think he should have given a week or some days notice because I was listening to the radio this morning and a few people said their weddings is on this weekend. And some of them were saying that they had paid the various vendors in full. So now that there is a ban, I'm wondering how they are going to go about it, whether their monies can be retrieved for them. If not, then it means it's their losses.
You heard some views of some Ghanaians on the ban on weddings and funerals and etc. Now, he adhered to all the COVID-19 safety protocols until he attended his granddaughter's birthday party and had to take off his mask to eat whilst talking with other friends who had gathered for that event. Some days later, he became infected with the COVID-19 and had to be admitted. His wife and son were also infected. That is the story of a professor of medicine and vice president of the Accra College of Medicine, Reverend Professor Adukwe Hesse. He's been admonishing Ghanaians to adhere to the COVID-19 safety protocols.
Our family has been very, 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 very careful. So very careful. We advocate and we correct people on the streets, wherever indeed. So that day, that evening, we had a little debate and asked ourselves whether it was worth going to this party at all. But then the social pressure of what the little child will think, her parents, and so on and so forth. So, okay, we marched up as we always do, and it was an open air rooftop near the beach, good breeze, park. Then it came to eating, and that is where we can't eat and drink without unmasking. And then I was positive. Staying in ICU is nothing new. But the feeling this time of I couldn't think, I couldn't pray, I just could not do anything. And I saw myself as different from my thought mind. Saw me in like two people are, and to will to do anything was not there. To desire water, to desire food, to desire to urinate, to desire anything at all, flat, nothing. So you just there, and you want to do something, you imagine it's in your thoughts, but it's a different person who has to do that thing. It's just lying there. That's what I mean by it's evil. And it's evil too in that it's by the sea. All we did was share air with the other couple. That's all we did. And then we got a sniff. All three of us who from this household, three of us got that from that table when we were frightened. And we still should be frightened because hundreds are dying. Now, at the beginning, there were 1, 2, 3, you could count. Now, it's community.
That's a professor of medicine and vice president of the Accra College of Medicine, Reverend Professor Adukwe Hesse. You heard there, you need to stay safe, wear your mask at all times and prevent COVID-19 from spreading. This is the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM, and it's also our coverage of the Election 2020 petition. I'll take you back there. The court is currently on recess, but earlier the General Secretary of the Opposition NDC, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, is insisting no candidate won the December 2020 presidential poll, saying that is the basis for the party's petition before the Supreme Court. He's been cross-examined most part of this morning. But let's listen to what transpired earlier.
But therefore, you cannot use what you know is factually incorrect and not permitted by the rules governing our elections as the valid vote, total valid votes cast. You can't use that. Even if the EC made that mistake, you can't use that as a basis for your claim.
My Lord, as I sit here, I don't know the total valid votes really cast. All the figures are coming from the first respondent, and that first respondent keep changing those figures.
Mr. Nketia, my question is, please answer my question. Your answer being the case that the 30,034,434,574 is not the total valid votes. That you've admitted that. You can't, I'm putting it to you that you can't use that as a basis, as a denominator for determining the percentages. You come to that, Beku. Why are you behaving like that? Yes. Answer my question. Go ahead. Answer my question.
Come again, my Lord.
I'm saying that you have admitted that the 13,434,574 that the chairperson of the EC announced is in fact not the total valid vote cast. And that if you do the tabulation of the actual numbers, votes obtained by each candidate as declared on 9 December, you find out that it is 30,121,111. Yes, I'm just trying to help you understand. Okay, and therefore, it is impermissible for you to use this 30,343,574, even if it was used by the EC chair, to determine the percentages.
My Lord, both figures are coming from the same source.
I didn't ask you which source. I'm saying it is impermissible for you to use it as the total valid vote cast.
If the first respondent declares it so, it must be so.
So you see, then if the first respondent declares that the second respondent is the winner, it also must be so.
No, my Lord, because that is why we are here.
And that's what transpired earlier. Court correspondent Joseph Akable joins us from the Apex Court with more. So, Joseph, give us a breakdown of that cross-examination till the court went on this recess.
And so it started from being the video that was played first, the video that led to the adjournment last week. And so that is a video of various individuals, including Mr. Asiedun Ketia himself, and Mr. Koto Ampao's views, making statements that leave anyone listening to the statement to the effect that they were suggesting that the NDC's presidential candidate had won the election. So that video was played and it was put to Mr. Asiedun Ketia. So that was where it started from. But even before that, the hearing started with the court raising some concerns about the media interviews that some lawyers on record have been granting, and specifically a reference was made to Mr. Frank Davis, who is a member of President Akufo-Addo's legal team. We can take a listen to the Chief Justice speak first about the issue relating to the lawyers who are granting interviews.
Out of court statement or grant an interview to the media on the matter. So please, we are just drawing your attention to the ethical infractions, and you have to advise yourself accordingly. Somebody other than you may do it. That is not our concern, but you are precluded by law because you have been announced in the case on a regular basis. I was grateful.
Interesting. Do we know what the reaction to that was?
Mr. Davis responded that he will be advised accordingly as the court has indicated. And so that was his response to this particular directive.
And the court is currently on recess. What are we expecting when they resume?
So when they come back, Mr. Kutampa will continue with his cross-examination of Mr. Asiedun Ketia. And so far, they are dealing with the figures relating to the total valid vote cast, asking to calculate from the individual figures the EC assigned to each candidate when they did the declaration. So we continue with the issues related to Fatima South and how, whether it's excluded or it's included, what's the actual figure of the total valid vote cast and what the percentages will be for each of the candidates. That's the line of question that we get a sense that he's leaning towards. Then afterwards, the expectation also is that he will finish that today because the court says that he has 1 day to finish that court examination. And so that is what we expect to happen today. And if that gets to its conclusion, then an adjournment may be taken for the next witness to be called upon tomorrow.
Well, so whilst we wait, do we know how soon the court will resume?
The Chief Justice specifically mentioned a 20-minute break, and so far it's been, I think, a little over 20 minutes now. So we're expecting the justice to come in any moment from now. And
Mr. Asiedun Ketia will continue the cross-examination?
That is so, because examined by Mr. Akotampa. And as I speak to you now, inside the courtroom specifically, you have the lawyers just interacting amongst themselves. Those who want to step out and stretch their legs, others find water to drink, are all doing so as they prepare to go back into the courtroom for this particular exercise to continue. So that is the situation here in terms of the Supreme Court. On the compound of the Supreme Court itself, there are some 2 TV sets here that those who are not able to get into the courtroom, they are gathered around monitoring proceedings as well. And there are some few others who have also come, who are also on the compound, just looking on and watching what is transpiring within the premises of the Supreme Court.
So it looks like Mr. Asiedun Ketia's tabulation and calculation from Friday is generating a lot of talk. Is it also generating that kind of talk? Because today it's continued. He's pulled his calculator and having to calculate a number of figures as well. What really has been the reaction at the premises of the Supreme Court to this?
In fact, there's lots of paying close attention and trying to understand what is being put across. And a lot of those who are here, some hold the view that he's helping the case of the second respondent in that he's confirming some of the figures that he has put out, whilst others feel that, look, he's answering, but he's not referring to the figures that were what were mentioned by the Electoral Commission chairperson. And so that is the disagreement among some of those who are gathered here in the courtroom. But they are paying close attention because it's a meticulous process that is ongoing that for those who may not understand what exactly is happening, the case is that the EC holds the view that it interchanged the total vote cast for total valid vote cast in its declaration. And that is what the NDC disagrees with, that it was not just a mistake. And so that is the issue of contention. So what Mr. Kutampa is doing now is he's having Mr. Asiedun Ketia put together the individual figures the EC chairperson assigned each candidate in the declaration and come to the conclusion that indeed the correct figure is not a 13.4 billion the EC chairperson announced. He's now using what he believes is the correct figure to now have Mr. Asiedun Ketia calculate the percentages. The next step for him is now to go into the business of the Fatima South constituency. And for many of those who are here, trust me, they are with their notepads, writing down the figures and continuing and following through with whatever the analysis and the math that is being done with Mr. Asiedun Ketia. And hopefully no one puts the 16 of the NSMQ under any of the sounds anymore.
Well, and that's Joseph Kable. And are we hopeful that cross-examination of Mr. Asiedun Ketia will end today for the other lawyers also to take their turn with him?
And that is the expectation. And we understand that if that elapses, it will mean that the only other option that will remain in terms of Mr. Asiedun Ketia will be if his lawyers, that is the lawyers for the petitioners, are allowed to do re-examination, where they are allowed to ask a few questions to more or less tighten up their witnesses' responses in relation to some of the questions that he may have been asked earlier. But if there are not going to be any such re-examination, it will mean that he will be discharged for the court to give directions as to when the next witness, that is Dr. Mike Kasawai, to be taken his place in the box.
Well, that's our court correspondent, Joseph Kable. We'll leave you to it because from the pictures we're seeing live from the Joy News channel, also on all our social media platforms, the justices of the Supreme Court are just about taking their seats. And as and when the feed is clear, we'll take you back there. But earlier, Mr. Asiedun Ketia also rejected claims that he and the former President Mahama and other leading members of the NDC created the impression the NDC won the presidential election during separate news conferences held before and after the formal declaration of the polls.
Video, I watch it here. I stand by every word, every punctuation, every sentence that relates to me, Johnson Asiedun Ketia. And There is nowhere, unless we are watching different clips, there's nowhere where I indicated definitively that the first respondent has won the elections. What I said was what I put in my answer last Friday, that we have won majority of seats in Parliament, which figure I put at 141 seats, and that we are cruising, the first respondent is cruising for victory. And that is precisely what has shown up in all the various speeches I have made, which have been clipped together.
So let's understand, you admit everything on the video coming from your image on the video.
From my mouth. Yes. Those are my pictures.
Very well.
And those are the words that came from my mouth.
I'm putting it to you.
Okay. So that's what transpired earlier. I'll take you back live now to the Supreme Court for proceedings.
51.302%. By the way, have you provided any evidence in your witness statement, or is there any pleading in your witness